Whatever Canada's major economic sectors were 50 years ago, they sure won't be the same 50 years from now. Moving a modern economy and its workforce into the future requires planning, foresight, and probably no small amount of luck. But it's essential for every person and business in the country if we're to maintain the economic position we currently hold in this world. Navdeep Bains is Canada's Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, and he joins us now on what he sees as our next steps. Good to have you back here at TVO.
Glad to be here.
Been a heck of a long time. It's nice to see you again.
While.
I want to just start with a snapshot of some of the announcements that you have made over the last month or so. So, Sheldon, let's bring this graphic up if we can. On February 12th, a little over a month ago, Building a Nation of Innovators. That was the report that you released. Feb 25, a directive to the CRTC, the Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, to promote more modern telecom competition and lower prices. On March the 5th, first of 7 projects of $950 million worth of supercluster programs. That was unveiled. On March the 6th, $1.9 billion over 24 years of smart AI-powered space robotics. And March the 11th, a $100 million announcement for small and medium-sized steel and aluminum manufacturers in Canada, presumably to counter the tariffs that the president has imposed. Question, why so many announcements of such big dollar values in such a short space of time?
Well, we've been doing this from day one. The priority for our government.
This many, this soon?
Absolutely. If you look at the announcements, the first announcement that actually was made by the government was reinstating the mandatory long-form census. And I made that announcement on behalf of the government as the minister responsible for innovation, science, and economic development. I'm also responsible for the regional development agencies that have invested in communities across the country. And we make announcements and investments on a regular basis. So clearly, our government ran on an agenda to invest in Canadians, to invest in communities, and that's what these investments reflect.
This will be my one and only cynical question of the day. It wasn't to change the channel by chance from other things that may be going on in Ottawa.
No, I'm doing my job. I'm responsible to see overall economic growth, trying to see more jobs, and that's what I'm focused on, and that's what these announcements reflect.
Okay, we've got the hard copy of your report here, Building a Nation of Innovators. What's the main 411 coming out of this report?
We want to create a culture of innovation in Canada. We want to say, look, Canada should be an innovation leader. And why is that important to Canadians? Because it's about better jobs, good quality jobs. It's about economic growth and a better quality of life. That's what innovation is about. It's about finding solutions to problems. It's about making sure that those solutions benefit people on a daily basis. And that's what our government's been focused on. And that's what this report highlights. We ran on a growth agenda. We invested a significant amount of money in infrastructure. We reduced taxes for the middle class. We brought forward a Canada Child benefit. And we also have made significant investments in innovation. The challenge is most Canadians associate innovation with the latest iPhone and the latest technology. But innovation is much and much more than that. So that's what this report highlights. It's telling Canadians what we've been investing in and the benefits and the outcomes associated with those investments.
Let's find out what more than just the latest iPhone it means, because you do say in the report, this is a new approach to drive growth and create good jobs.
That's right.
What's new about it?
Well, the new aspect is it's a focus on people. It's our innovation and skills plan. If we want to see innovation, if we want to see economic growth, and by the way, our economy is growing really well, the fastest growth rate amongst the G7. If we want to see more jobs, we've seen a historic unemployment rate, 5.6%. So that means over 900,000 jobs have been created. If we want to continue to see that, we need to invest in skills and people. And so this report highlights all the investments we've made, from coding to young kids learning how to code, to mid-career people getting opportunities through grants and interest-free loans to be able to reskill and upskill, to work integrated learning opportunities. So this really reflects the fact that our new smart industrial policy, which is called the Innovation and Skills Plan, is focused on people. And this is what differentiates Canada versus other jurisdictions.
Well, let me ask about that, because Canada has, I think it's fair to say, not without its faults, but it does have one of the better education systems around the world.
That's right.
More than half the people in this country have some post-secondary education,
That's
which
correct.
is a very high number. But apparently, our own talent pool won't be enough to fill the 200,000 plus digitally skilled jobs that this report predicts will be needed not that far down the road, by the year 2021. Are Canadians not receiving the education they need to fill these jobs of the future?
That's part of the challenge. And the other part of the challenge is we're seeing enormous economic growth and a change in the nature of work. what the workforce of tomorrow looks like. What are the skills that are going to be required? So you highlighted the 200,000 gap. I think it'll be even higher than that because of the growth that we're seeing in the Canadian economy. And we recognize that. That's why the number one focus for us is around talent and people and skills. When I talk to a small business or a large business, this is the number one issue they raise.
So how do we change that?
So by focusing on education and learning, like you said, 56.7% of our population has a post-secondary education. So how do we continue to build on that momentum? So we're investing in a lot of areas, respecting provincial jurisdiction.
I was just going to say that. This is there's the old expression, stick to your knitting. The knitting in this case is really under provincial jurisdiction. So how do you have an impact?
Well, let me give you an example of coding. So 36% of the schools don't provide any form of coding. And why is coding important? Well, it's important because it provides young people with the digital skills. It allows them to understand how to solve problems, how to work with others. Those are the skill sets they're going to need for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. And so what we did is we worked through non-for-profit organizations where schools can then work with them directly to provide coding opportunities for kids and also training teachers as well. This way, we're not dealing directly with the schools. We don't impede on provincial jurisdiction. We work with non-for-profit organizations, and 1 million kids have learned how to code. So this is an example of how we're finding creative solutions. We're also investing in our colleges and universities. One of the first marquee initiatives of our budget in 2016 was a $2 billion investment to upgrade the infrastructure in our universities and colleges. And when it was leveraged with the provinces as well, it was over $5 billion. And that resulted in more students getting better educational outcomes, but also more international students wanting to come to Canada. We've seen a huge spike in the number of international students that want to come here, and that's really a byproduct of the investments we made.
That's international students coming here. I want to ask you about our students here going somewhere else, because a recent study apparently shows 65% of software engineers from 3 of our top schools work outside Canada. That sounds like a brain drain. Can you do anything about that?
That is a legitimate problem. We've seen this problem not just today. This is a problem that's occurred for quite some time. And I think we've turned the corner. And let me illustrate that, how we've done that. We introduced a program called the Global Skills Strategy. And this program, again, speaks to the need about companies wanting to have access not only to incredible Canadian talent, but global talent as well. And the visa processing time now for a company is just 2 weeks. If they need to bring someone with highly technical skills, they can do so in 2 weeks. And 25% of those visas that have been issued are Americans wanting to come to Canada. So clearly, there's companies here, there's opportunities here. And if you look at Toronto, for example, it created more tech jobs than Seattle, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco combined. So the economy is growing, there's opportunities here, and we're starting to see a little bit of that reverse, as you spoke to, as Canada being the farm teams for America primarily. We're starting to see a change in that now, and we're starting to see more companies here in Canada. For example, there's billion-dollar valuation companies that we call unicorns. Shopify is an example. Hootsuite's an example. Skip the Dishes, for example. These are companies that have enormous opportunity, market valuation. There are 28 companies in Canada that have a potential to become unicorns. That means billion-dollar companies. And that's double from the previous year. And the exciting part is they're remaining in Canada. They're not being bought out by American companies or European companies or Asian companies. So that speaks to, again, the fact that they have access to talent, and we're also attracting global talent as well as promoting and really creating opportunities for Canadian talent.
One of the things you say in this report is that you want to position Canada at the forefront of the global economy. How far away are we from that?
Well, we are behind. If you look at compared to China or the US or Europeans in some cases, there's areas where we can and must improve. So that's why we introduced policies like an intellectual property strategy, the first time we introduced such a policy. And the idea is, how do we up our game on patents? In the new knowledge economy, it's so critical. Because if you look at the US, for example.
I got some numbers on this. Hang on.
Okay,
I hate to interrupt you, but I got some numbers
go
on
ahead.
I mean, since you're right here. Can we put these up, Sheldon? Here we go. The importance of intellectual property, as the minister just said. Businesses using IP in patent-intensive industries have about 8 to 10 times more revenues than those not using IP. So huge advantage in having it, obviously. They pay 16% higher wages than businesses with little or no intellectual property patents. And yet, let's flip over to the next graphic, only 10% of Canadian small and medium-sized enterprises hold formal intellectual property patents. Only 4.2% have an IP strategy. And according to the 2018 Global Innovation Index, we are 17th out of 20. 17th out of 20. What does all that suggest?
That means we can and must do better. But that's also why we put this policy in place to recognize, as I was saying, if you compare ourselves to the US, and that's usually a benchmark that we use, if you look at the S&P 500 in the US, if you look at the asset valuation for their top companies, their top 500 companies, 84% are attributed to intangible assets. So PANS, for example. If you look at the TSX, top 30, for example, or top 50, only 40% have assets attributed to intangible assets or PANS. So clearly there's a major gap. And that's why we put forward this national IP strategy. There's two components to it. One is to deal with bad actors and trolls. We've seen this in the past where American companies come in and they want to undermine our IP or take away our IP or extort resources or benefits of our IP. So we brought changes in, legal changes in to protect our companies. We've also put in a strategy to help small businesses, and that's really important as well because not only is it important for economic growth that you're seeing the revenue numbers, not only do they export more, 40% more, but they pay better, 16% premium in terms of wages.
Just saw that.
So this is about better quality jobs for Canadians as well. So this is where our focus has been, and we've also put forward a patent collective, how to pull patents, again, to deal with bad actors and really see those benefits remain in Canada. And Jim Balsillie, for example, has been very supportive of that, and he was very much involved in how we design and put forward that strategy.
He was in that chair not too long ago. And he was in that chair a few years ago. And we actually asked him a few months ago about comments that he'd made a few years ago and whether anything had really changed very much. This is, of course, half of the dynamic duo that came up with BlackBerry. You want to see what he said?
Absolutely.
Fire away, Sheldon. Let's go.
Our understanding of how an innovation economy is incomplete and it's not updated. So these strategies are just tweaks of strategies we've used for 30 years, and they haven't worked. And so Canada's had zero growth in its innovation measured by Stats Canada over 30 years, in spite of hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. And all of these programs are just the same thing we've done before. I'm all for good infrastructure, I'm all for incubation, I'm all for basic research, but it's not going to address the core issue of why we abysmally underperform. The problem in Canada is that we have a discourse in the policy circles and in the business organization leaders and the political class that is really mired in 30, 40 years ago, 20th century traditional manufacturing economy. So they haven't updated their understanding of how an ideas economy works. So there's gaps and incompleteness in the approach, and until we acknowledge and address those gaps, we're just going to keep repeating the same mistakes.
Okay, I should say a couple things. Number one, we did talk in the course of that interview about the fact that he says he likes you, he thinks you get it, he thinks you're good at your job. But he also said, when I asked him this question about why this gap and why we're doing so badly, he said, play back the same interview I did 3 years ago, nothing's changed. Can we tackle that question he raised? Why are we so abysmally underperforming? That was his word, abysmally underperforming everybody else.
So one thing I want to highlight is, in the past, we had the minister responsible for industry. Now that's been replaced for a minister responsible for innovation, science, and economic development. I think that title change reflects where our government's priorities are. Secondly, I think proof points demonstrate that we have turned the corner. One of the things he's highlighted is the fact that we're investing all this money, but are we seeing the benefits here in Canada? And one area that companies have consistently talked about as a challenge is financing. So we've talked a lot about talent, and that's a key part of our innovation and skills plan. But the other component is financing. Do companies have sufficient means to take their ideas to market? Can they commercialize them? Can we create jobs here, growth here, and benefits here, and ultimately see the innovation in Canada? And if you look at venture capital financing in Canada, last year, there was a record number of $4.6 billion. And what was really important to note, it's late stage financing, and it's bigger amounts for companies. And that speaks to the earlier point I made, about 28 companies now that have the potential to become unicorns, billion-dollar companies, remaining in Canada. So clearly we're turning the corner. Well, you have to recognize that innovation doesn't happen overnight.
I was going to say, he would say not nearly fast enough.
Yeah, like it doesn't happen overnight, but we're starting to see progress. We're starting to see Americans wanting to come to Canada and work as part of the technology sector. We're starting to see Canadian companies getting the financing that they need. And we're starting to see Canadian companies scale and grow in Canada and remain in Canada, which obviously is one of the key outcomes of our innovation agenda.
But I think, again, if Mr. Balsillie were here, he would say it's about ownership of intellectual property, and that is where we are falling behind. Are you making any progress on that front? So
let's take, for example, artificial intelligence. This is a point of pride for Canada. Significant investments were made in the 1980s, and it created the Geoffrey Hintons, the Yoshua Benjios, the Rickson, household names in machine learning. And now we have enormous ecosystem around the artificial intelligence community, over 700 companies across the country in AI. So taking those ideas, taking those patents and commercializing those ideas. We have 40 incubators that promote AI. And what's really important to note around artificial intelligence is that we're number 4 for AI and machine learning patents according to OECD. So clearly, in some areas, we are making progress. And that's what this plan is about. It's not a 1 or 2 year fix. Innovation is not one policy, one program. It's consecutive years of concentrated effort, of building partnerships, of promoting intellectual property, but more importantly, investing in Canadians. And then we'll see the benefits 5, 10 years from now. And this is the long-term game that our government's invested in. It's about the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow.
Here's David Crane, writing in itworld.ca. In looking to build Canada's future in the knowledge-based digital economy, a world of artificial intelligence, robotics, and 5G, the Trudeau government often appears more focused on attracting foreign big tech than in building up our own homegrown champions. Yet these foreign R&D branch plants means that much Canadian talent and research is used to create intellectual property that will be utilized elsewhere to create jobs and wealth elsewhere. This makes us an incubator for the benefit of others. Your comment.
We're not an island. And what's Canada's brand? We're open to people, we're open to ideas, we're open to companies, and we're open to investment. Foreign direct investment increased by 58% versus last year. We're at $51.8 billion last year. So clearly, our economy is attracting global investment, which is great because that's more money for research and development. It's not an either or. We're doing both. We're seeing Canadian companies grow and scale, and we're also seeing that foreign companies, international companies, want to invest in Canada, and that creates more jobs and more opportunities as well. And when it comes to intellectual property, we're the first government. Think about this, in this new knowledge economy, if you look at Stephen Harper and their 10 years in government, they never came forward with an intellectual property strategy. We've done so, but that will take time in terms of seeing the impact of it, and that's what we're investing in. And obviously, we want to see global companies come here because when they come here, their executives that decide to help Canadian companies scale and grow benefits Canadians as well. And going back to the global skills strategy, for every one visa that we issued, not only did it attract incredible American talent, but it created 10 Canadian jobs. So when we're open to investment, open to companies, open to ideas, it actually creates more opportunities and more jobs for Canadians.
How concerned are you that because of the diplomatic difficulties that we have had with Saudi Arabia and now China, that the millions and millions of dollars that our post-secondary institutions realize from their foreign students coming here to study here, that's all going to go up in smoke?
Well, geopolitics is always a consideration. We recognize that these issues do potentially impact relationships at the post-secondary level, but ultimately these countries recognize Canada as a place to go because we value diversity. We've seen record investments, $4 billion invested by a government in science. Remember, again, Stephen Harper shut the pipes.
Okay, well, I don't want to talk about Harper because he's not here to defend himself.
But no, the point I'm making is the previous government did not invest in science. We invested $4 billion, and that investment attracts people from other countries to come here, and they see that as staying power. They're seeing that our countries...
But if you're fighting with other governments, which, you are for perfectly legitimate reasons in some cases, you're going to feel that in the pocketbook. We're going to feel that in the pocketbook. That's inevitable.
True, there might be some challenges based on the geopolitical issues, and we have to stick to our values, and we have to stick to the rule of law and to our principles. But ultimately, I think these relationships speaks to the Canada staying power and Canada's brand. We're open for investment and trade, and of course, we're open to international students. And we've seen a record number of international students come to Canada over the past several years, as I mentioned earlier, because of our brand, because of our policies, and because of the investments we made into our colleges and universities.
Well, let me do a follow-up on the Chinese situation, because Huawei, of course, the Chinese mobile phone company, they've been using Canadian scientists to develop their 5G technology. The U.S. considers this company a security concern. Do you think the Canadian government should be worried about the extent to which publicly financed research ends up in foreign hands?
So from our perspective, we want to build partnerships with colleges and universities to promote research. We want to see those benefits here in Canada. And when it comes to international companies coming here and collaborating. We welcome those opportunities, but we want to make sure that we have robust policies in place. And I've highlighted some of those robust policies as well. And more broadly speaking with Huawei, I think the fundamental issue Canadians are talking about is, can we trust their technology? Does it impact their privacy? Does it have implications on national security?
What are the answers to all those
questions? And the
answers
is we're going through a robust review right now. My colleague, Minister Ralph Goodale, is reviewing all those issues. We're working with our allies. We're working with other countries to understand how they're approaching the same situation as well. And I'm also working with the telecommunication companies to understand the economic impacts, because some of them have made investments in these technologies as well.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. If Huawei is good enough for Bell and TELUS, should they be good enough for you?
Our number one objective is to protect Canadians and make sure that they're safe. That will be the underlying way we make our decision, is to make sure that Canadians are protected, their privacy is protected, and public safety is protected. And ultimately, that's how we'll make our decision.
Okay. Minister, we got a few minutes left.
Yep.
You will not be surprised to hear that I do want to ask about the other issue that has really been captivating Canadians for the last month.
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to ask you directly, do you think SNC-Lavalin should get a deferred prosecution agreement?
So this is the decision that the Attorney General has to make. This is not a decision that I make, but clearly from my perspective, jobs matter. I'm responsible for the economy. I talk about jobs. Any single job that is lost is a cause of concern for me. And so I'll continue to talk about jobs, talk about growth. But when it comes to the cases that are before the courts, when it comes to how the deferred prosecution agreement will or will not be applied, that's really at the discretion of the Attorney General.
We definitely know that now. Have you had any conversations with the new Attorney General, Mr. Lametti, about this?
No, I have not.
Why not?
Because he's aware of all the issues that we have been raised, all that has been documented in terms of jobs. He'll make an independent evaluation. He understands. He actually was my parliamentary secretary, responsible for innovation, science, and economic development. He is from Montreal as well. He knows the situation there. He understands the company, and he understands the economic challenges across the country as well. So he's aware of all the issues, but I have an open door policy. If he wants to talk to me, I'm more than willing to engage him.
Because, clearly your government believes there is nothing inappropriate or certainly illegal with the Prime Minister, his former Principal Secretary, the Clerk of the Privy Council, the Minister of Finance, the Chief of Staff to the Minister of Finance, offering their advice on this file to the Attorney General, because they certainly did that with the former Attorney General. So why don't you?
If I'm asked, I would obviously talk about the jobs. I would obviously talk about the impact this would have. I want to make sure that anyone that does something wrong should ultimately be held accountable. There's got to be consequences for bad behavior. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of the fact that jobs are on the line. And how do we protect and preserve these good quality engineering jobs and a lot of jobs that support those jobs right across the country? This is not only about Quebec. More than 50% of the jobs are outside of Quebec as well. I was in Alberta, where I announced an investment in Interpipeline, and I talked about these jobs also impacting engineering opportunities in Alberta. And that's really our objective, is how do we create an economy that works, and an economy that works for everyone.
How glad are you this is not your decision?
No, I think this is about being government. This is about making tough decisions. I'm at the cabinet table. It's an honor and privilege to be there. You recollect in 2004 when I was elected, we were in government for a short period of time. Then I held many years in opposition. Then I actually lost in 2011, and I was very fortunate to win in 2015. And to be at that table is a huge honor and privilege, and I have enormous confidence and respect for the Prime Minister.
Okay, let me follow up on that, because obviously you recently lost two cabinet ministers who said that they did not have confidence in the Prime Minister. Why are you right and they're wrong?
That's their point of view, and they have to explain their perspective, and they've done so to a certain extent. My position is very clear. Prime Minister has given me a clear mandate to grow the economy and create jobs. I trust that we are pursuing that agenda in a very meaningful way. I respect the Prime Minister. I like his leadership style. I respect the values that he has, and we have a great working relationship. When I agree or disagree, we have candid conversations all the time. And like I said, it's an honor to sit in cabinet. It's very few of us that get that opportunity to sit in cabinet, to be part of these decisions, and I'm extremely fortunate to be there.
Given that Jody Wilson-Raybould and Dr. Philpott, Jane Philpott, have both said they do not have confidence in the Prime Minister's leadership, and therefore they remove themselves from cabinet, but they continue to sit in caucus. Are you comfortable with that?
That's a decision they made, and ultimately caucus is looking at that. and I wish them all the best.
When you say caucus is looking at that, you're part of caucus.
Yeah, so we haven't had a chance to go to Ottawa to talk as a caucus as a whole. During the March break, we've been engaging with our community members, knocking on doors, going to events, attending town hall sessions. So this is a conversation we'll go and have in next week. But my perspective, and I can tell you, which is very clear, is that I'm focused on my job.
No, I get that, but do you think they should be allowed to stay in the Liberal caucus? What's your view?
My view is if they want to stay, they're more than welcome to stay. I mean, we have a big tent. Our Liberal Party respects diversity and different points of views. We recognize that we may not always agree.
Yeah, but diversity and different points of view are fine when it relates to, this education policy or that financial policy. My hunch is it should not be about whether or not you have trust and faith in the Prime Minister and the leader of the party. Can you have a diversity of views on that and be one happy family?
I can only lead by example, and I've highlighted that I have enormous confidence and trust in the Prime Minister and his abilities. I'm focused on my constituency. I'm focused on my ability to improve the economic outcomes for Canadians, and I think that's all I can do is lead by example. Ultimately, they have to determine what's in their best interest, and this is a conversation exactly that we will have in caucus.
Do you feel Liberals can have candid conversations about their future with those two members of Parliament still in that caucus, given what they've said about the Prime Minister?
Absolutely. And more importantly, our conversations in caucus are not about Liberals. It's about Canadians. It's about who represented us. It's why we're there. Ultimately, yes, we may have difference of opinions and some internal issues, but fundamentally, our objective is to serve Canadians. This is why we got elected. And I know what it feels like when you don't get a mandate, and I know what it feels like when you're outside of politics. This is an incredible platform to have an impact, to make a difference. And that's why many of us are focused on those types of issues around economic growth and jobs, and that's what we'll be talking about.
That's Navdeep Singh Bains. He's the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, and we're grateful you spared some time for us to come into TVO tonight. Thanks so
very
much.
much for having me.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.